Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Hockey Cards Gongshow podcast. This is episode 43, the last Gongshow podcast of 2022. My name is Josh. As always, I'm joined with Troy. Hey, Troy, what's up, good buddy?
Not much. Just won a holiday tournament championship. Pretty excited.
Yeah, big win over Minnetonka Girls Hockey. Who did you guys beat?
So we beat Maple Grove, Andover, and Holy Family. So all top 5 teams, I think. So we should jump up in the ratings, hopefully. I mean, we're usually 3. I think we'll jump to 2.
Okay, number 2 in the state of Minnesota. Not bad. Because of the big championship win, this is the latest I think we've ever recorded the podcast. So don't message us tomorrow morning. I guess the day this comes out, we're going to be probably pretty tired. You have a good Christmas, Troy?
Yeah, it was good. Did a quick road trip down to my wife's family. Had to wait for them to reopen the interstates, but then it was good to go. Went down there quick, came back, and then we got to do my side of the family Christmas probably this weekend.
Yeah, so you went south and we went north. Did a quick 2-nighter as well, but we left after the storms, so didn't have any road issues. I know there's been travel issues for a good part of the U.S. and Canada. Big-time storms in the past week. I did mention already this is the last podcast of 2022, which is kind of crazy to think about. It's kind of a big show, I think. It's one we've worked on pretty hard. 2022 year in review. So excited to get to hopefully a lot of good content for you guys around the hockey hobby this year. Quickly, though, before we start, just a reminder that we did release part 3 of the Hockey Cards 101 series this past Monday. It was all about brands and sets. Got some pretty good feedback on that. So hopefully everyone enjoys that. Also, we are very well aware that there's no real great organized place to go find episodes 1, 2, and 3. And we are definitely working on figuring that piece out. And hopefully we'll have something done there soon. Last thing before we get started, just a reminder that the Hockey Cards Gongshow podcast is a Patreon podcast, which means we rely on listeners like you to help us cover our expenses, continue to produce more and hopefully better hockey card content, and help us fund initiatives like Hockey Cards 101 to help grow the hobby even in a small way. Right now, you can take advantage of our out of 99 support level tier. Forever have that title, be one of the first 99 supporters of the Hockey Cards Gongshow podcast. You'll also get exclusive access to the Gong Show Discord server, where you can chat with Troy and I and all the other people that are in there, kind of building I think, a real fun community and a great group of people, and definitely enjoy chatting with everyone and talking hockey cards on a daily basis. It's very easy to become a patron. All you got to do is go to the Patreon website and search for Hockey Cards Gong Show, or you can visit the link in the show description for whatever podcast app you're listening to us on. And finally, there's a link within our Instagram profile to Patreon, where you can, again, join that out of 99 tier and become a supporter. Since our last show, we do have one new patron. Special thanks to Basement Breaks. Appreciate your support. And I think we're ready to roll, Troy. You want to go ahead with the game plan?
On today's show, we begin with the most famous NHL player to wear number 43. Then it's on to a special edition of Movers and Shakers, where we look at the biggest gainers and losers of 2022. Then it's on to the biggest hobby stories of 2022. Then we look at some user polls we did around the hockey hobby in 2022. Next, we look at hobby news, followed by a quick preview of some hockey cards available in the current PWCC Weekly Auction. And then we end the show with new product releases and our personal pickup. All right. Most famous, number 43. We've kind of mentioned the pickings. Some of the 40 numbers, the pickings are slim. This one is actually, he's not that bad of a player. So when the hockey writers, they put in there, they're like, it was a very weak pool at number 43, I guess. But this player rose above the cream of the crop for the number 43s. So the most famous player to wear number 43 per the hockey writers is Martin Baron.
Another goalie.
I was waiting for our sweet sound effects that you were doing.
No, not
all right, no sound effects. No sound
Didn't
effects.
figure
right.
that. But I will agree, though, So far, the 40s have been kind of weak.
Yeah. So Martin Biron, goalie, obviously Josh just said it. He played 508 regular season games over a 16-year NHL career. Played half of his career with Buffalo, 3 seasons with Philly, 1 year with the Islanders, and 4 seasons with the Rangers. In the awards and accomplishments, there is no NHL hardware Stanley Cups or individual awards and accolades. He had a career regular season record of 230 wins, 191 losses, and 52 ties or overtime losses or shootout losses, whatever. That last digit one always confuses me because some players were in the shootout era and some aren't.
Oh, yeah.
His career goals against average is 2.61, which, just to give you a basis, is 60th all time, with a career save percentage of .910, which is 58th all time. However, guess who is number 59 in all-time regular season save percentage? So Martin Biron is 1 spot ahead of this guy. It is Patrick Waugh. I thought that was I would have never known that, but I looked up the list and Patrick Waugh was right below him. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
So you're saying Biron's better than Patrick Waugh?
Biron's better. Greatest goalie ever. In addition, Biron had 28 career shutouts. Now, playoffs. Biron played in the playoffs in 2 of his 16 NHL seasons. That must be depressing. That's just that's not very good. It's not like on him, just bad teams. 23 games played in the playoffs. He had a record of 11 wins, 12 losses, 2.87 goals against average, and a .908 save percentage. He did manage 2 career playoff shutouts. And if anyone remembers,
was he the goalie right after Hasek?
Yes, he took over after Hasek departed for, I think, Detroit. Is that next after Buffalo? Hasek went to Detroit. Yep, Biron. Actually, you read my mind because I have a note next. Biron became the starting goalie for the Sabres after Hasek left in 2001. And I said that must have been a tough act to follow.
I think that's the most impressive thing, that he actually had a decent career following a GOAT.
Yeah. During the 2005-06 season, Biron had a streak of 13 consecutive wins. And during the 2007-08 season, he led the Flyers to the Eastern Conference Finals, where they lost in 5 games to the Pittsburgh Penguins. So that's kind of the overview of his career. Now it's fun facts, and I just really, really enjoyed these fun facts because they're so kind of odd. Here we go. After NHL statisticians discovered a bug in their new stat tracking software, the Biron rule restricted jersey numbers to whole numbers between 1 and 99. Later changed to 1 and 98 after the league retirement of 99 for Gretzky. Biron was the only NHL player affected, as he was the only player that wore 00 at the time. So because of his number, they had to switch the rules because it screwed up the NHL stat tracking software. So there is a Biron rule in the NHL, and he switched to number 43, which he wore the remainder of his career.
For anyone that's old enough, it kind of reminds me of Y2K.
Yeah.
Where it's like all the NHL stats went away because Martin Biron wore 00.
This is such an odd stat. Or an odd fact. I just love it. So with that being said, he is the last NHL player to wear number 00. The other most famous one is John Davidson, who was a goalie. He wore 00 also. But the tracking software, stat software, wasn't sophisticated back then. And then Biron is one of 5 players in NHL history to skate for all 3 teams based in the state of New York. The others were Mike Donnelly, Taylor Pyatt, and former teammates Jason Daw and Pat LaFontaine. So
that's pretty cool.
That's an interesting fact. And then, except for a 2.5-year stint with the Flyers, Biron played almost his entire career in the state of New York. I'm guessing not a lot of other players can say that. All right, rookie card.
Do we have to?
Well, you don't really have to. I just went by which one of there's a couple of rookie cards out there. I went by which one had the most graded copies, which isn't going to be a lot. It is the 1995-96 Parkhurst International, number 295. PSA only has 6 graded copies of this card total. BGS only has 12 graded copies of this card total. And that's the most of any card for Martin Biron. I couldn't find any sales of the graded cards. Obviously, I did find the raw sold on November 23rd, of this year on eBay for $1 with $2 shipping. So not much else to go over on that.
Yikes. So the greatest number 43 of all time is rookie cards worth $1.
$1. Yep. And even graded. You know what? I think if I remember right, I might have looked and found there was an Emerald Ice, I think, variant of his Parkhurst that the last sale I could find was like 2012 in Card Ladder. And
man.
It wasn't a lot. It was like, I want to say somewhere between 10 and $20.
Okay, I have two questions.
Okay.
Is number 44 any better?
Yes, way better.
Okay, great.
I believe 44 is a Hall of Famer, if I remember right.
And then who was second place to Marty B?
The runners-up. One was Nazem Kadri, and the other one, I'm going to look it up real quick as we talk on their production meeting. The runners-up were Kadri and Patrice Brisebois. But number 44 definitely, actually, is he a Hall of Fame? Number 44 is very well known, so we'll say that.
Okay.
Definitely had a great career.
Really quickly, before we start digging into our 2022 year in review, want to remind everybody that a custom card stand or 2 or 3 would make displaying your cards at home on your Facebook or Instagram pictures so much better. Please visit our partner Stand Up Displays, where they have fantastic product. We get a custom card stand through their direct print product. You just send them a logo, an image, whatever you want to display your PC, and they get it done pretty quickly too, Troy. We had some beautiful stands made from them and have had a number of listeners had stands send us pictures of stands that they've had made too, and they're pretty awesome. If you don't want a custom one, they have some pre-made ones for like McDavid or Osby or Ovechkin, Crosby, etc. that can help show off your PC cards as well. Best news, of course, is that if you use the promo code GONGSHOW, GONGSHOW, at checkout, you can save 10%. So go to standupdisplays.co, check out all their stands and custom options. And while you're at it, please give them a follow on Instagram. They post a lot of pictures of stands people make and kind of give you some really good ideas. All right, we're going to do a special edition of Movers and Shakers. Pretty excited about this one. So normally, as you know, we do Who's Hot and the Struggle Bus. Going to keep with that pattern, but we're going to look today at kind of our picks for cards this year that we think were the hottest and maybe represented some of the biggest gains or rise into prominence, and then conversely cards that rode the struggle bus or a couple players that had a little bit of a tough 2022. So we're going to start on the Who's Hot end. Probably not a ton of big surprises here, but first guy, Troy, is we're going to go with Jason Robertson, and particularly want to look at his Young Guns PSA 10, which right now has a population count of 419. Everyone remember that number real quick, 419? To me, Troy, this has been one of my favorite cards of the year to track, and could also be one of the most interesting cards, I think, to watch in 2023. Why? Well, I think there's 2 reasons. Number one, his play has been ridiculous. He's really emerged this year as, I think, a solid star. Or would you put Robertson in star or superstar category right now?
I would say star verging on superstar. So I'm going to take the coward's way out, I guess, and say both. But he's definitely on the trajectory to be a superstar with how he's been playing.
If he keeps this up, I think by the end of the year, we might be able to have that superstar conversation. And the other reason is his pop count, which I mentioned again is 419 right now. Quickly, though, before we dig into the pop count, his most recent sale for his 2020 Young Guns PSA 10 was $450 on December 22nd. Troy had peaked as high as $675 on December 7th. So it's come back down a little bit from them. Just for a bit of context, if you go back to October 25th, so roughly 2.5 months ago, $153.
Wow.
So you've 3x'd since then. Obviously, it's seen a meteoric rise over the last 6 months. Looks like Robertson is here to stay as at least a legit star in the NHL. The question, though, for me, Troy, is what's going to happen to this card in 2023, especially with the pop count? Could we see, I guess we'll call the Kaprizov effect, right? And could that potentially, I think, maybe drive the value of the card down, actually, even if he continues to play at an unreal clip? So let's dig into the Robertson pop count a little bit. At the first of the year, there were 9 total PSA 10s, right? So going back to January of 2022, now there's 419. On September 6th, Troy, of this year, there was 170 PSA 10s. It's more than doubled in the past 3.5 months. And we can only assume this, I think, that this is going to get higher. Now, will it get to the Kaprizov number that's amazingly approaching 3,000 PSA 10s right now? I don't know. I do, though, think that Kaprizov is an interesting comparison because for a number of reasons. They're both the same year. They're different series, right? Robertson Series 1, Kaprizov Series 2. We'll get into a little bit of that breakdown in a second. But Kaprizov had a kind of a meteoric rise and sort of popped off like Robertson had too. And in turn, PSA was flooded with Kaprizov's young guns at that point. I think one thing going, sort of keeping along the Kaprizov-Robertson young gun PSA 10 comparison, one thing going for Robertson is given he's Series 1, the gem rate is lower than Kaprizov. So current gem rate for Robertson is about 43%, where Kaprizov 67%. So it's going to take a lot more Robertson young guns to be submitted to PSA to get anywhere near the Kaprizov pop count. So again, Troy, it's at 419 right now. He's playing out of his mind. Going just based off the Kaprizov numbers, we know that there's a lot of 2020 product printed.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my questions that I'm kind of interested to get your input on is, do you think it's reasonable to assume that in the next 6 months or sooner that Robertson's over at least 1,000 pop count?
I think if it doesn't, it gets very close to 1,000. I don't see that being a problem with what he's doing. And just you hear the chatter and the talk about Robertsons and people deciding to send them in, look at the shape they're in. I guess if you own this card right now, you actually are glad to see that gem rate is kind of lower than the Kaprizov. So maybe you won't run into the mighty fall that we've had with Kirill's PSA 10 Young Guns. But I definitely can see it getting to 1,000 or very close to it in the next 6 months.
What pop count do you think starts to, in a material way, negatively affect his value?
I feel like anything over 1,000 that, you start taking a second look at it. Because it's a hockey
I
card.
think 1,500.
Yeah.
I would say 50, but you might be right. And definitely 2,000. I think you're going to. So if you had a Robertson PSA 10 that, let's say, you bought for a couple $100 6 months ago or even less, and you like the card and you want to keep it, would your move be to sell it now, thinking that you might be able to buy it back 6 months from now, maybe looking at the off-season dip at a little bit of a discount from what you could get it for right now? Or are you holding it because you're worried that he's going to continue to play out of his mind? He's just getting started as far as breaking through into that potential superstar status. And even at 450 right now, it could be worth 800 a year from now.
I'd probably sell, knowing my luck, my history. I'd sell, get my money, call it good, and then just hopefully it falls back down a little and I would buy it again.
Whatever either of us would do would be the wrong thing. So if anyone ever wants advice, just ask us.
There's definitely a case to be made for both ways.
Mm-hmm.
I think that pop count is going to grow. Like, I think faster than we think it is.
And if by some chance you have more than one, I would definitely sell one and hedge up your bet a little bit there. Do you agree, though, that that's one of the more interesting cards for when you're looking back at 2022?
Oh, yeah. And it's funny because you think about 2022, and then it's like, well, we started the show in May, and it seems like the story of Robertson is so soon, but it's, this is just one of the biggest stories, and it just came, near the, November-ish, we'll say, is when he started like really blowing up.
Yeah, really, since the start of the season.
Yeah.
Well, I think there was a lot of concern, too, given his holdout and missing training camp. Would he get off to a slow start? And that obviously was not the case. Okay, so the next guy's a little bit Captain Obvious, too. Got to mention Tage Thompson and who's hot for the year. It's really kind of him and Robertson were the two big breakout guys. As far as cards, though, I chose his Future Watch Auto, really as sort of like my Thompson card of the year. So, Troy, on January 4th of 2022, almost a year ago today, somebody picked up a 2017 SP Authentic Tage Thompson Future Watch Auto out of $9.99 raw for $20.50 US. Could be the buy of the year, right?
$20.50. Wow.
So last sale for this card was $350 US on December 23rd. That's a 1,607% gain for that lucky buyer back in January. And $350 US is not even its peak. It reached as high as $421 on December 14th. So that was kind of the raw. If you look at the graded version, so PSA 10 of this Future Watch Auto, still pretty low pop on this card, as I don't think many were graded prior to 2022. There's 19 now, probably some more coming to, the card's only out of $9.99, so there's not going to be thousands of these. But I think this one could get from pop count like 75, 100. Wouldn't be really shocked there. Mm-hmm. Back in July was actually the first sale of this Future Watch Auto PSA 10. It went for $300 US. I believe it was a pop 8 at that time too. Most recent sale was December 18th for $1,075 US. That's a 3x increase in 6 months. Not that bad. Looking at a lot of Tage Thompson cards, of course, in December, when it seems like every day there was a rookie. I've been meaning to, and we haven't even talked about this off air, Troy, but have you noticed, of course, that all of his rookie cards are in a Blues sweater?
I did notice that.
Okay, so I have a question about that for you that I've been thinking of, but just real quick sort of history on that for anyone that might not be aware. He was the 26th overall pick by the Blues in the 2016 NHL entry draft. Ended up playing 41 games for the Blues in 2017. Was traded to the Sabres prior to 2018 as part of a package that included Thompson and Patrick Berglund, Vladimir Sabatka, and 2 draft picks for Ryan O'Reilly, who, okay, tiny tangent here, but Troy and I joke all the time, have you ever opened up a hobby box and not had a Ryan O'Reilly insert? Multiple Ryan O'Reilly inserts? I'm convinced
Ryan O'Reilly has the most printed cards of any player in the last 2 to 3 years.
You can't escape him. So, and there's actually a great article right now on The Athletic. I think it's from a couple weeks ago about this trade and really how it was considered for a really long time a horrible trade by the Sabres. Right? Everyone thought that, or the Blues just fleeced the Sabres, right? Because they got O'Reilly. I think he won a Selke or at least one with the Blues and has had a pretty good career. But what I keep coming back to right now, though, is sort of called December, the month of Tage. And seeing, if you're a Blues fan and you're seeing all these cards and you have this Tage Thompson guy who, other than 2 guys that play for the Oilers, is just dominating the NHL, it's got to be tough to see him in your sweater, knowing that he's not in your team, huh?
Oh, we're used to that with the Wild. It seems like every time we get rid of someone, they go on to do something great. And we can just look at our cards and remember that they used to be on our team.
So that's my second choice. It's the Tage Thompson 2017 SP Authentic Future Watch Auto in the St. Louis Blues uniform, of course. But yeah, I just keep looking at that guy that got it for $20, or gal, I should say, in January. The third one is one vintage guy, and I think that this, to me, and again, I'll get your input on this, Troy, was kind of the obvious choice, is Gordie Howe in his 1951 Parkhurst rookie. It seems like ever since the Expo, this card has been going crazy. Just to point that out, there's been a numerous all-time high sales for graded slabs in 22, like I said, especially in the past 3 or 4 months. So I'm going to run through, and this is not the full list, but we want to keep the show under 5 hours here. So an SGC 9 sold for $108,000 US in October. SGC 8.5 sold for $56,400 in November. An autoed PSA 6.5 sold for $54,000 in November. A PSA 7.5 sold for $44,000 in October. And a PSA 7 sold for $36,000 in August. All these were all-time high sales.
Yeah, that's the thing. When you were putting this list together and I saw that, it made sense because how many posts did we see here that even the ones that we put out where it's new all-time sale and it's this Gordie Howe card. I mean, that was just 5 that you named. And again, that's not all of them. Like, again, we got to keep the show short, but everything Gordie Howe of that card was a record sale this year.
What do you think's the reason for that?
I don't know.
Is there anything to do with Ovi?
Well, that one thing I was going to say is like, do we think Ovi just, getting the goal record back into the news led people to start looking, let me see, okay, I know Gretzky's one, who's out, Gordie Howe's two, that's who Ovi's chasing. And then, I don't know, maybe looking at the cards, reading up on how, like, he's one of those guys, like we mentioned when we did the Mount Rushmores and stuff, where I obviously knew he was a great player, but I didn't really understand how great he was because I never saw him play. But when you do a bunch of research on him, you see how really, really fantastic he was. Plus, it's a super cool card. Those Parkhurst 51s are awesome looking. Maybe all that stuff. Like, I don't remember any big news stories breaking with Howe that would have led to this, but I'm glad they are because it's definitely good for the hobby.
Roughly half of our audience is in the U.S., and so this is a message for all of our U.S. folks. All of our Canadian friends that are spoiled rotten, you're going to be like, yeah, whatever here. But to me, one of the things that, looking back on the expo, that really stands out is being able to see cards like this in person that we've never seen here. Not that they're not in the U.S., of course, but they were everywhere.
Yeah,
at the expo. Yeah. And boy, do you get a much more of an appreciation, at least I did, for the 1951 Parker set, being able to see these cards in person.
For sure.
Okay, so that's our list for who's hot. The cards of 2022. We're saying the 2020 Jason Robertson Young Gun, Tage Thompson Future Watch Auto, and Gordie Howe 51 Parkhurst Rookie. Obviously super subjective, very debatable, but let us know. Message us and see if you think that any other cards should have been on this list. Okay, so for the struggle bus, there it is. Always on time. At least, given all the, the post office can't get here in time, Southwest Airlines can't get here in time, but you can always count on the struggle bus, Troy.
Struggle bus will always make it to its destination and pick people up. It is always room on the struggle bus. You're
not going to believe who's sitting right up in front.
This is crazy talk. This is crazy talk.
Ladies and gentlemen, Wayne Gretzky, number 99, the great one, is on the struggle bus. How is this happening? So his 1980, he's on there for one very specific card. His 1980 Topps PSA 9 Pop 134 sold for $750 US on December 18th, which was its 1 year low. It had sold in the beginning of 2022 back in January for $3,750 US dollars. So it's down an even $3,000 or 80%, Troy, this year. So let's rewind to Tage Thompson. In January, somebody buys a raw Future Watch Auto for just shy over $20. And now, right, that's a $300, I can't remember what it was, $300 some dollar card. $350, I think it was. Conversely, somebody buys a 1980 Topps, very cool. I'm getting not OPG, but PSA 9, low pop, Gretzky, second year, for $3,750, thinking, this is probably a good deal. It's down 80% right now.
That's wild.
How do you explain that one?
That is wild. That makes no sense. There's nothing I can do to explain that. It makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, you can say, well, the market's down, but the market's not down 80%.
No.
Right? And actually, skipping probably ahead here, but did you see that the year-to-date for the hockey market or the hockey card index and card ladder is up 7%?
When you say that, to me, it makes sense. Now, I didn't look at all the different cards in the index, but that sounds about right from what we've seen.
Yeah, so I would have not known if $3,750 would have been a great deal for this card back in January, but I would be pretty confident at $750 that, again, would I rather have the OPG? Yeah. But for a real low pop second year mint Wayne Gretzky, I think the buyer did pretty good there.
For sure.
Looking at its OPG just from a comparison standpoint, it's down 2, but it's down 38% year to date. So Topps down 80%, OPG down 38%. All-time high for this card is 5,000 back in February of 2021.
As I guess, February or March 2021.
Yeah.
Well, you look at the chart on this bad boy and whoa.
Yeah, it's brutal. And if you look in Card Ladder, almost every version of this card from Topps and OPG, so looking at all the graded variations, whether it be Beckett or PSA and the various grades are down year to date, with the exception of the OPG PSA 10, which is up 16% for 2022. So they're all down except the best one, which is up 16%. That's kind of strange too.
Interesting.
I don't know, for $750, would you be interested in a 80 PSA 9 Topps Gretzky?
I don't know. Probably not. I want the OPG version.
You want the OPG? All right. OPG snob.
Snob.
It's all right. The world needs those people too. Okay, the next one. And these are the biggest kind of losers of 2022. Not that they're losers.
No,
they're
card losers. Biggest card losers.
The biggest loser. You're such a loser. Next guy is Drake Batherson. I don't know if we've talked about Drake.
I don't remember him being talked about a lot. Probably just in some random comment. But
so his 2018 Young Gun PSA 10 popped 258, down 78% in 2022, over 41 total sales. It last sold Troy for $54 US on December 18th. The card started the year worth $247 US, and it even sold as high as $320 back in March. And it's not that he's playing bad. He's got 31 points in 33 games. I know, Troy, this isn't a math show, but that's almost 1 point per game. And it's also crazy, too. Like I said, he's already got 31 points. His best season to date was last year, where he scored 44 points. It was only in 46 games.
Yeah, 46 games. He's going to eclipse. He should eclipse that. Knock on wood. I don't want to jinx him, but
and it's not that I'm like the greatest Ottawa mind here, but it seems it's another one like Wayne, a little bit inexplicable. And again, it can't just be that the market's down. It's down almost 80%, and we know the market's not down 80%. Just I don't know. What do you think? Just kind of a good player, not a great player, therefore not a lot of hype.
Yeah, just kind of a middling kind of guy. Maybe had some hype coming in, but maybe not lived up to the most potential that people thought he had. I'm not 100% sure, but that's kind of interesting.
Okay, even though the struggle bus isn't small, there are two guys sitting right in the same seat together, and I think it has to do with the Russian connection. Two Russian players kind of round out our riders of the struggle bus for our 2022 Hockey Hobby review. First guy, Breadman, Artemi Panarin. Troy, his 2015 Young Gun PSA 10, pop 808, last sold for $57 US.
That is stupidity. That is such stupidity, but we've talked about this guy before. He's one of our guys that is on the zero hobby love train. It's just ridiculous.
It's down 81% in 20 year to date. It started the year valued at $290 US, and there's been 78 sales so far in 2022. The value of this card is basically on a 2-year slide. It's worse than just this year. It had peaked as high as $435 US in April of 2021. And again, he's having a good year. He's got 41 points in 35 games. He's kind of an assist machine.
He is. I wonder if that hurts him. Just he doesn't score 50 goals. He's just an assist machine that scores goals. That's crazy.
9 goals, 32 assists for 41 points in 35 games. 57 US. All right. He's sitting right next to his Russian buddy here. Actually, I don't know. I wonder if they are friends. Never looked that up. Your guy, Troy. This is the Troy Iverson. Oh, I cannot wait. I have a question in here that I think there might be a big time, I'm hoping at least anyways, Gongshow connection to our guy Kirill Kaprizov. In his 2020 Young Gun PSA 10, popped 2,788, inching towards.
Why do you say that number? It just pierces my heart every time I hear it. I sit there and go, my card is never going to get near where it was. Never again.
Well, it's down 44% year to date, currently selling for about $265 US. Last that sale was on Christmas Day. At the start of 2022, this card was selling for $575 US and even topped out at $785 on February 10th. Please, for the love of God, tell me that was you.
No, I'm looking at my order history. September 29th, 2021 is when I bought that card.
For what?
$750.
Oh, if you would have been the high sale or the high buyer for the year. Okay, so at least somebody's like, what is that? 5% worse than you or something like that. Because I knew that the timing was sort of in that range, and I knew you had paid like over $750. And so I'm like, oh, for the love of God, let this be Troy. Please, please, please. But okay, wasn't you. Let's dig into the pop count a little bit. Again, current pop count, 2,788 PSA 10s. On January 3rd, 2022, Troy, I'm going to say this really slow so it sinks in with you. So this is after you bought the card, right? The pop was 178.
Yes. This will be after I bought it.
2,788. So it's increased more than 2,600 so far this year. You want me to rub it in a little further here?
Well, I can rub it in myself. I'm looking at the card ladder price history, and like I can see where my purchase is at, and then it like precipitously just starts dropping after that. And then there's a little spike in that February timeframe, which you found, that one sale.
Yeah,
it spikes up a little bit. It's not like out of the ordinary or anything, but wow. So at the time, I think it was a good purchase, but whatever.
As it sits right now, this card, the 2020 Kirill Kaprizov Young Gun PSA 10, has the fourth highest pop count for any hockey card of any grade with any grade
of
all time. People went bananas this year in submitting this card to PSA. And I think that this is where, in going back to is Robertson going to have the Kaprizov effect? I want to circle back that a little bit because I didn't want to give away all the Kaprizov stuff during that conversation. But I think his 43% gem rate is maybe the saving grace there.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like Kaprizov is really good. Right? We watch him play every game. He's got 43 points in 33 games played. He is everything to the Minnesota Wild. How many games will the Wild win if he didn't play any this year?
Like I don't know.
4?
I mean, it's amazing how if the Wild get on the score sheet, he's involved probably 80% of the time. I don't know what the actual stat is. I'm curious. I'm really curious now. I want to research this with my StatHead free month that I got. For signing up. I want to know what player has the most percentage of points for a team ever.
Okay, since you're really personally invested in this, what do you think the reason is why it's down so much? Like if you had to force rank all the potential reasons, where would you start with? Because it's never just one thing, right? So we know that. So I think force ranking probably is a more fruitful exercise. But what would you say is the leading factor?
For me, I think the leading is pop count. I think second is, I think people got smart on his age, and you got to remember, what's he, 26 now?
No, he's 25
or 25, but got that late start.
Is he still 24?
Is he 24? Okay, but late start to his career.
We don't know.
High pop count, late start to his career. I know there's probably something with the Russian. I don't think that's the biggest deal. I don't think people care about that much. Yeah, I think pop count's a huge, huge chunk of this. When it's
maybe a little bit of the market you could throw in there. And then this hurts my heart to ask this question, so I just got to say that. But do you think, and it's impossible because we're in the bubble here, but does anybody outside of Minnesota care about the Wild?
It's a great question. No. I don't think they do.
I really don't think so. Because I never hear anybody talk about, they'll go on and on about the Rangers for days, of course. And I just don't think anyone cares about our team.
Well, yeah, so we'll sit there and say we're the state of hockey, which we are for Minnesota and everything. But do other markets care about the Wild and Kaprizov? No.
We're the state of the holiday tournament champion, Minnetonka.
Yeah, we are.
Skippers, is that what you are?
Yep, Minnetonka Skippers.
Yeah. So that's it for Struggle Bus. Wayne Gretzky tries on the Struggle Bus. Did you ever think there would be a day where Wayne Gretzky?
But it's like Wayne's on the Struggle Bus holding that card though, because it's not like every card. It's just he's holding his 1980 Topps PSA. Was it 10? I'm assuming. Looking at
it. The PSA 9.
Oh, PSA 9. He's got that one card in its slab, looking at it, going, "Ugh. All right, buddy, we're on the Struggle Bus. I'm sure he'll be off soon enough."
He probably just would hold it up to you and say, stupid Tops. All right. What did you think of my list? Did I do good?
Oh, yeah, definitely did good. I agree with it.
All right. Switching gears a little bit. One of the things that we wanted, or I guess we're excited to do, is to look back over the last few days at 2022 and go through all of our past episodes, show notes, and I don't know, kind of reflect on, I guess, the biggest hobby stories of the year. And for us, it's a little more of probably a half year since we were in the hobby until before we started the podcast, but not, I don't think, looking as closely, especially on a day-to-day level. And before, I guess, we get into both Troy and my perspective on the biggest stories of the year, one of the other things that we've been doing, you might have noticed if you follow us on Instagram, and if you don't, you should, because you can participate in some of our polls, which we've been doing a lot of. But we also asked people what you thought were the biggest stories of 2022. And I guess to start our conversation, maybe we'll start there, Troy, and you and I can chime in and agree or disagree or add some additional points to, I guess, what our listeners and followers thought were the biggest stories of 2022. We'll start with the Hockey Cards Gongshow Discord server and our friend 419 Sports Guy. So he starts when thinking about biggest hockey hobby stories of this year. He says delays in hockey card releases. That's a big one, huh?
I would agree 100%, and that might be the biggest. I think that's the one we get the most comments on or questions is delays. When's this coming out? When's that coming out? I see that there's 5 releases coming out on this date. Is that really happening? And no, it's not. And we don't have the answer, and sometimes Upper Deck doesn't have the answer, so we just kind of sit and wait.
His next one I thought was pretty interesting, and I hadn't thought of it first, and the more it sinks in, the more I think I agree with 419 Sports Guy, is Toronto Expo success and hockey hobby momentum heading into 2023. Well, maybe I should say that it's hard because we don't have context. I suppose if we'd been to the last 10 expos, we would be a better judge of that. But I just feel like that there was a buzz there. And maybe, again, it's our giddiness for being there for the first time. But I don't know.
No, there was definitely a buzz. It was definitely packed. A lot of people, a lot of deals going on, a lot of talking to other people, and just how it felt like this was the first real expo since COVID. Like it obviously was, but just that people were back and it was time to go. So the hobby, I for sure feel that, what he said about Toronto.
So the second part was the hockey hobby momentum heading into 2023. And this is one I actually want to address a little bit because we do get accused, and probably justifiably so, of being on the optimistic side of the hobby outlook. And I guess the way that I think of it, Troy, is you can look at a glass of water that's half full and be a glass half full, glass half empty kind of person, and neither perspective is necessarily wrong. So any of those that kind of think of us as more hobby optimists, you're probably right. And I think that's mainly our disposition, not that we don't think that there are issues, or whether it be economic issues or issues specifically within the sports card market that could definitely and will have likely will have an effect in 2023. But all that being said, Troy, I feel like there is momentum for hockey heading into 2023. Do you?
I feel like there's momentum. I feel like we are getting a lot of questions from just people saying, hey, I'm new to hockey. Here's my question. And I think we've seen it a little bit in the card ladder index. Obviously, the card ladder index is a specific set of hockey cards that you can look at and see what's in there. But it's pretty good range of stuff here and there. And I think definitely, obviously, I do agree with you that we are on the optimistic side. And I do think that there is momentum just from what we've seen going into 2023. And just watching breaks and stuff, how many people are involved in doing all these breaks and the excitement. Obviously, we get a very small sample size of a engaged, I guess, engaged audience when you do that. But it does to me seem like there is momentum heading into next year.
I think, too, it's on what I've noticed is the market is hot in certain pockets or sectors where it's very specific things. It's not one of those markets where just because there's a big name on the card, you're going to get $20 for it, right? There's going to be some things that maybe a year or two ago were a lot easier to sell than they are now. And you do have these Panarin and Kaprizov and I guess Gretzky issues, right? Where you do have specific cards that are down big. But overall, I do think for very, specific parts of the hobby that there is, like I said, some momentum there. Okay, next guy is from Discord is Blades of Steel. The rise of Jason Robertson and Tage Thompson. We pretty much covered that. But yeah, it's hard. It's the two, other than McDavid being ridiculous, right? It's the two big stories so far this season. And I think, again, going back to, it's a good sign that I'd be really worried about the hockey hobby and the market if their cards weren't going up.
Mm-hmm.
That would be bad. He also mentioned UD's upper decks, continued backlog, and more specifically, still no sign of the cup.
Yeah, I think the tea leaves are pointing to the cup coming out in the next 2 months, but I don't want to jinx anything, but I think it's coming. I just hope so.
Next thing Blades of Steel mentioned was hockey's steady hand when compared to the chaos of the overall card market, where card prices are collapsing. We kind of just addressed that, but very well said there. And then grading, and more grading. Tag, Arena Club, etc. More graders entering the market, grading companies dropping prices, doing special deals, changing prices, doing deals with like PWCC or others doing with whatnot, with card manufacturers, right? So we saw on baseball side, the Baum and Chrome deal with SGC for like $8 a card. So there's a lot of moving pieces in the grading world right now. It's your favorite topic, so I'll let you handle the commentary there.
Yeah, grading is my favorite topic. It still, a lot of the stuff confuses me. It seems like they're just throwing ideas up, letting the wind take it and running with it. But like we've said, I'm not opposed to more grading companies getting in if it leads to innovation. Obviously, we've said that. We've had Jeremy Leon about Tag. We've talked about them a couple times, how maybe they're pushing some innovation. And I think that's a very good thing. So I'm not opposed to new companies coming in. I just wish someone could simplify the whole process and just get rid of these levels and different prices for different things. And maybe that's just pie in the sky on my part.
We also had a bunch of people chime in from Instagram. So J2Dro78 said Tage Thompson. Third time he's come up. So again, December has been the month of Tage. It could end up being the year of Tage. It'll be interesting to see how. Well, actually, one point that we'll probably start to talk about now in the next couple of months are some of the hardware races. I don't know. It's like, man, if you would have gone a month ago, it would have been hard to imagine anyone but Connor McDavid winning the Hart Trophy. But boy, it could be a race with Thompson and Robertson and McDavid. So that should make a fun back half of the season. Apps Hockey Cards said awful quality control of 2021 Series 1, right? We've talked about this a lot. We've done a lot of social media posts on it. I think this is a big story and will have a ripple effect for years to come in the hobby, especially if some of these promising rookies get to the Tage Thompson or Jason Robertson level over the next few years, right? You have Trevor Zegras, who I'm going off the top of my head, I think his gem rate right now is like 29%, right? That's crazy low. And almost everybody is in the 40s at best. Right, and that includes Cole Caulfield and Jeremy Swayman, Spencer Knight, who are the other Series 1 guys? And I think those are probably the biggest, unless I'm forgetting someone. But yeah, and then the other thing that makes, I think, that specific flagship release so interesting is then you compare it to Series 2, right? And we know Series 1 was printed in a U.S. facility, Series 2 in an Italian, not that necessarily the geography matters, but more so that they're printed in different facilities, and the Series 2 gem rates are really high, right? Isn't like Lucas Raymond near 70% or something? He's in like the Kaprizov territory.
Yeah, and I think Upper Deck's kind of they haven't, I don't think they've directly addressed it, but they've indirectly, they know about the quality control on the Series 1, 21, 22 Series 1 and addressing it. And I don't know where the most recent Series 1 was printed, 22, 23. I don't know if it was the US or Italy or wherever, but I don't know if we've seen many gem rate statistics come out yet about that. It seems a little early, but
it's super early, but it's tending lower than Series 2 of last year. So I don't know. I wonder if there is some sort of reason or trend where Series 1 is just always lower gem rates than Series 2. We haven't been following closely enough for long enough, really, I think, to know that answer. I do agree, Apps Hockey Cards, that is kind of a big story this year. Next person that chimed in was Edlister82. Fake Future Watch auto patches. I think there were Premier fake patches as well. To me, this is like the saddest story of 2022.
Yeah, you'll never get away from this. We've seen it in other sports. It's obviously going to happen. It will happen again. I don't know if it's patches or whatever people do to these cards, but definitely a sad story. I think my one takeaway is I wish there was more of a reaction from the companies on what can be done rather than kind of letting the market police it. I wish there could be something else. Now, I think, and let me know if I'm not remembering this right, that we thought listeners were telling us that some cards now are having windows over the patches. Does that sound familiar?
We've seen a couple of those.
And that's a step in the right direction. I know people have suggested, is there a way to make it so, I don't know if the patch or the window is removed, it ruins the card somehow with, I don't know a way you do it, like the glue or there's some kind of ink or something that can mess it up. I don't know. Definitely sad and stinks. Just there's bad actors out there. So when we had that conversation with Jeremy Lee on the project he did a long time ago, looking at fake patches, I still wish that could be done. I know the expense is probably huge to do that, but I wish they could all be imaged, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
My big takeaway from that whole experience was you can't impulse buy, like especially a big money RPA, and you have to do your research. And if you're going to spend 3, 4, 5, 50, up to 50,000 plus on a card, you got to do your research and be very skeptical. And I think you have to, almost before you buy a card like that, and I'm just talking about like how I would approach this, Troy, is assume the patch is fake and make myself prove that it's not.
That's kind of interesting you said that, because I've looked at some, because obviously we know Dallas Star stuff. We saw
there's a lot of Robertson stuff.
Robertsons, you mean Ottingers? And I was looking at Ottingers around that time, and I just kind of stopped looking at those patch cards because, one, the show takes up a lot of time, and I didn't know if I'd have enough time to research it all. But it definitely affected me on my thought process around those cards.
Yeah, so that was definitely a bummer story for the year. GMAD 195 responded, the rise of PMGs and specifically the retro inserts. And I think that coincides with, I looked at, so 2020 Skybox Metal Universe came out, I believe, like September 8th, right? And so that, I think the timing wise, that makes sense that a lot of the big, whether it be the green retro PMGs or the gold, the 101s would have been pulled or sold in early 22. And financially speaking, and from like a resale market, there's some big sales, especially those retro PMGs. And we'll talk about later on in the show the checklist for 2021 Skybox. But it's hard to argue, if you wanted to say what was the most successful, well, again, it was technically a 2021 release, but boy, in the last year and a half, it's got to be up there as one of the most successful hockey releases. And people went nuts over like Ovechkin and the Kaprizov and Matthews and Crosby and McDavid, all the big names, especially those gold retro PMGs.
For sure. And it's one that, we had Les Edwards on, and him and I were kind of the same boat. I don't understand the PMGs that well. They're not.
Has it grown on you at all, or are you still kind of?
You're just not
into it.
I mean, I can appreciate there's a history to them, and there's like the design. They brought back the old designers, and I think that's kind of cool. It's not my favorite card. I don't really particularly love the look, but I appreciate it. I can understand why there's prominence or providence around it.
Okay, Stay at Home Thad Show says the emergence of guys like J-Rob. Here's a nickname. I haven't heard this one. Tage the Rage? Is that a thing?
I like it. Must be Tage the Rage. He's all the rage.
And then he threw guys in like that we didn't mention, but could have. That Logan Thompson, who's my sneaky Calder candidate of the year. Believe me, I'm going to rub that in because I'm horrible at prognosticating. And then Linus Allmark. To me, I kind of gravitate to the Linus Allmark, and there was so much hype around Jeremy Swayman, and Linus has just almost taken all the wind out of his sails. Just because he's played real well, right? And they got a new coach that wanted to go with the more veteran goalie. Yeah,
for sure. And I think there was all the hype around Swayman. I think Boston even at times kind of mentioned how Swayman's kind of the future, but Allmark just came in, and it's good. I mean, Swayman's still super young. And I think Allmark, is he pretty young too? I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's nice to have options.
Yeah. And then the last listener that chimed in is Psychobob TB, and he said delays. Yeah.
Agree 100%.
Yeah, that could be the biggest story of the year.
Never mind. Allmark's not young. He's 29. I couldn't remember.
Well, he's young-ish, right? He's got 10 years.
He's young-ish.
Compared to us, right? He's pretty young.
There you go.
Okay. So thank you everyone who chimed in. That was really great to get all your perspective. And now I kind of want to chime in and give, I guess, our own personal perspectives. We're not going to rehash a lot of the stuff that people, listeners and followers chimed in with, but maybe couple other points. So first thing, Troy, is nobody of all the people that chimed in, nobody mentioned the inception of the Hockey Cards Gongshow podcast.
Does that mean we pack it up? We're done. We didn't have the impact. We're over.
It's over.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Dead humor. Okay, so for realsies, now I started again with the backlog of releases, and it's not just a backlog. To me, it's that there's not more clarity as to how or when Upper Deck's going to get caught up. After talking, and again, I don't blame, and I know Tony and Billy have nothing to do with it's not their department when stuff comes out, and I believe everyone at Upper Deck is doing their best, and I'm sure there's a whole lot of real pertinent issues that are none of our business that we just don't know about. But I was pretty convinced heading into this fall that by now we were going to be more caught up than we are. Mm-hmm. Do you agree with that?
I did.
And I just don't feel like we are.
No. I
kind of feel like it's a little bit of status quo. It's tough because it's not that they haven't been releasing stuff. And I also think that, and I think, or I should say that this to me is part of the crux of the issue is you can't release 2 products a week to get caught up. So they're really smart people and I'm sure they'll figure it out, but I have no idea how. And so just to give a little bit of more context on this, right? 2020, the Cup isn't out and it's almost a joke at this point. You know, it's going to be a little bit sad in some ways when it does come out because we won't be able to complain anymore that it hasn't come out. Beyond the Cup for 2020, which I believe is the last 2020 release that hasn't been out. You go to 2021, right? So we've had a couple 2022 releases, MVP and Series 1. Well, we have Metal it's technically not out. I know it's coming January 5th. Allure, Credentials, Clear Cut, OPG Platinum, Synergy, Trilogy, Ultimate, Premier, SP Authentic. In 2021, the Cup, right? Probably forgot some, but that's 11 releases that still for 2021 that are not out yet. Soon to be 10 because we know Skybox Metal's coming up. It's just crazy. I had the fake patch issue, but we kind of already talked about that. The other thing, I guess, a cousin of that, as far as like on the negative side, I thought the other big negative story was the SPA boxes that were missing autos. Because there's so much excitement for that product coming out, and it was a real big bummer. Now, I do think, though, to give Upper Deck credit, that was a turn lemons into lemonade scenario because I was really impressed with how they handled that situation, and they seemed to work really hard to make it right for people that did experience boxes without autos, but still a negative.
And just remember, too, on the other side, some people got lots of autos in their boxes. So
oh, my gosh.
For them.
7 autos.
Yeah, 7 auto boxes we saw.
So just like one of our listeners and followers, I had 2021 Series 1 gem rates. That was one of the things on my list. And then beyond that, again, relative stability in the hockey card market. And again, relative, right? Not absolute, but relative. Again, mentioned that the hockey card index and card ladder is up 7% for 2022, which was kind of crazy. I wouldn't have guessed that. I'll just, for clarity, already say this, but it's not that it's all roses. It's I think there's pockets that are up, pockets that are down, but I feel like there's relative stability. Last one that I have, Troy, on my list is Ovi getting to 800 goals and then passing Gordie Howe to be officially the second all-time leading goal scorer in the NHL. I think that in and of itself is a huge deal. And I just feel how he's played the first 35 games. It's made me really confident that unless something crazy happens, he's going to break the Gretzky goal record. He's just too good at this age. And it's not the goals. He's still flying around and blasting people. And doesn't look, other than his kind of silver fox hair, he doesn't look like an old man on the ice to me.
Yeah, he doesn't look like he's slowing down, and he's smart. And obviously, takes care of his body. So if he can keep doing that, even though he does say after celebrate, he was going out to have like chicken wings and hot dogs or something at the bar. So maybe not, but I think he knows what he's doing. And if he can stay healthy, I think it's his to get to. And what do we think? 2 years? Is that what we said? 2 to 3?
I'm thinking early, like the first half of the 2024 season is my best guess. I think it's technically possible it could happen next year, but he would have to.
Well, you never know if those empty net goals.
So he had an empty net goal to break Howe's record, right?
Was that I don't know. I haven't been checking.
It was a really sweet. You got to look it up. It was not like a gimme. It was a very impressive. As far as empty net goals go, if we had to rank like our top 10 empty net goals, it was pretty impressive. All right, so that was my list. We've had the listeners list. We've had my list, and now Troy. It's the most important person, Troy.
Well,
is there anything else you can add?
No, I did. I started on my list, and I was like, well, wait, let me see what you have just to make sure. And it's like within the first 3, I've already had everything you had. There's nothing I have that's new. So I'm just going to basically bite off your list. I had the grading stuff on mine as just kind of, I don't know if it's the biggest story, but it is interesting to see all the grading movement that's going on with pricing, companies, blah, blah, blah. And then I just mentioned I still hate grading.
Do we need to invite PSA on the show or SVC?
They might have to talk me off the ledge
Beckett, or something. And have a Troy therapy session. Should we have Jeremy Lee maybe put you on the couch and make you feel good about grading again? Or what needs to happen here, man?
I don't know. I just
the
want
resentment.
I just want simpler. I don't resent it. There's a market. I
feel like you do. Because resentment's the death of any relationship, Troy. And your relationship with grading is not in a good place.
I just want it simpler. I want it simpler. That's all I want.
Okay, so last thing on the 2022 review part is we did ask a couple polls. So through Instagram, if you're not following us, well, why aren't you? Come on, follow us on Instagram. We asked a couple of questions that I just thought were interesting, and I wanted to get listener and follower feedback on. So we asked the listeners and followers, who was the hockey hobby breakout star of the year? And I wonder, Troy, if you'll have the same, or have had the same thought I did about this, because I really thought it was interesting, in particular, one guy on here I'm looking at you right now, for a reason that initials RB. Okay, just to move on. We asked again, who was the hockey hobby breakout star of the year? Was it Cale Makar, J. Rob, or Tage the Rage, I guess? Tage Thompson? And Jason Robertson kind of ran away with it with 43% of the vote. Tage Thompson at 38%. And your guy, Troy, Cale Makar, at only 19%. And what I was trying to see if we were vibing, which we're obviously not. I wonder how the recency bias factor on this.
Oh, I was thinking that. I was like, this is total recency bias. I didn't know that's what you were wanting me to say or what. I thought RB was a name. And I was like, who did I miss?
I thought we had a better connection.
I was like, who else is on this list that I totally did not get? No, it's total recency bias.
Maybe Jeremy Lee needs to do therapy for us, too. Or wait, isn't there a sports card podcaster that's a therapist or something like that?
I'm sure a sports card therapist or something. I'm sure it's out there.
Oh, yeah, maybe that's his name.
How soon we forget Cale Makar? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's you go back again. We're looking at the calendar year of 2022. Mm-hmm. And for 3 months, it was Cale Makar and then 2 other words, then Bobby Orr. And his cards were exploding. It has been a little quiet so far in the 2022-23 season for Cale Makar, wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm. Yes, for sure.
And that's, I think, taken out of some of his hobby steam, has dissipated a little bit. But, okay, so do you agree with that list or disagree? That the order as far as breakout star of the year is Robertson, Thompson, Makar? Or
I think so. But to me, that makes sense. I'm almost impressed that 19% people said Makar, because of just how recent Robertson and Tage are going nuts. See that poll, you're automatically going to go to recency, to the most recent stuff. And what's all the news been? Tage, Robertson. So I'm actually impressed that Makar got 19%.
He did win. He somehow beat out your guy Kucherov for the Norris. And he won a Stanley Cup. I think I'd go Makar, Robertson, Thompson. Just based on, it's not like Makar's playing bad. Yeah, that's a tough one. Or maybe not. Maybe then Robertson, Makar, Thompson. I don't know. Thompson's had a great season, but a really, really great 6 weeks.
I was going to say he's had a 5 week period. But again, I think that's where people's minds are going to gravitate to. What's the most recent?
Okay, then the other question we asked people, just because this is all stuff I'm just curious in. What was the biggest flagship release in 2022? So we had 4 flagships release this calendar year. We had 2021 Series 1, which we've talked about, 2021 Series 2, your favorite, 2021 Extended Series, and 2022 Series 1. So again, we asked which was the biggest or best. The winner was the 2021 Series 2. So that's Sider, Raymond, Byfield, Newhook, right? Who else am I forgetting? Those are the big ones.
Yeah, there's probably someone we're missing, but
narrowly, very narrowly, by a couple votes, beat out 2022 Series 1. I don't know. It's got Peter Kachikov, right? Piotr, or whatever.
Wi-Fi?
Wi-Fi. No, he's not.
No, that's not. That's the goalie. Sorry. That's not Wi-Fi.
Yeah. And then third place with 24% was Series 1 for 2021. And your favorite, Troy, Extended Series for 2021, only at 10%.
I'm amazed.
Actually, I'm surprised it had 10%.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm amazed Extended got 10%. Boy, I don't think the hobby has loved Extended Series 2021 Extended Series.
Well, that includes our wrap-up of 2022, our year in review information. If we forgot anything egregious, please let us know. I think we covered most of it, don't you?
I feel like we got a good list. I'm sure there's those one thing.
I'm sure we forgot something completely obvious, but all right, let's roll into hobby news. So really quick on the injury front, only one note, not a super big name, but big loss for the Blues, Torrey Krug. Of course, the Blues defenseman placed on long-term IR with the lower body injury. All right, Troy, sell your Torrey Krug.
Hey, guess Torrey Krug is the only OPG Platinum Seismic Gold I think I've ever pulled.
Oh, wow. I've never pulled one. That's pretty impressive. Okay, this next issue in hobby news, I'm kind of bitter about.
Uh-oh.
And I don't know if it's just me. I'm also curious to know if you had this thought over the last 4 or 5 days. What I'm thinking of course, is that the NHL took a 3-day holiday break from games with no games this Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. And my question is, Troy, do you think this is a good thing for the league and fans? Now, of course, the NFL and NBA had games galore. I also think that there's been so much momentum in hockey, especially this month, and where you have literally every channel is a different football game. There's 73 Christmas basketball games and nothing for hockey. I just think it's a mistake, and I'm curious as your thoughts.
I think it's, I just wonder if the NFL NBA juggernaut during the holidays is so much that the NHL didn't want to even do it. And I'm sure this was a collective bargaining agreement deal that they made with the players, because I know the players have been pushing for some kind of holiday break or.
Oh, of course. Why would you want to play on the holidays if you're a player? I totally get that.
Great for the players. The league, not so much. But I think I'm not as upset about it as you are. I can live with it just because I think the NFL and the NBA probably have it on lockdown. There could be a missed opportunity, but I'm actually okay with it.
I'm just worried that the vibe is dead.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit reactionary. I get it. We'll see how this next week goes. But I just feel like there's so much momentum. I kind of wanted it to keep going. All right, a couple other notes in hobby news. I guess getting back a little bit to our year in review, I just thought there's sadly, a lot of big names on this list, and it's the legendary players we lost in 2022. So we're talking about like Clark Gillies, Guy Lafleur, Mike Bossé, Bjorge Salming, a lot of big names. It's really sad. And I know there's been others, but that's 4 pretty prominent players that passed away this year. Wanted to make a mention of that. Last thing in hobby news is quickly, I don't know if people are playing tonight, but through one game in the World Junior Championships, we'll just give the U.S. and Canada a little update here. Canada, Troy, lost game 1 to Czechia, which is the Czech Republic, right?
It's got to be, yes. It's got to be Czechoslovakia, right?
I feel like they need to...
I got to make sure I get their name right. I don't want anyone coming after me.
And I know we have listeners there, and it would actually be nice if somebody messaged us and helped us understand this, because I don't really completely understand the geopolitical situation, but I feel like it'd be awesome if they could pick one way and kind of stick with it, because I'm getting confused. Whatever you want to be called. But okay, so I guess it's Czechia. Well, anyways, Canada lost 5-2. They hadn't lost the first game in the World Junior Championship since 2016, when they lost to the U.S. 6-4. Their 2 goals, though, were scored by a guy named Shane Wright and Connor Bedard. So I guess hockey hobby bright spots there if you're from Canada.
I think I'm going to shout out one of our Discord users, 419 Sports Guy. He said, so Canada did play Germany today, and he said Bedard is just doing Bedard things. He had 7 points, 3 goals, 4 assists.
What?
Yeah, and he said Bedard. He did say Germany looked terrible. Bedard doing Bedard things. That's what he does.
Dang. Did he say anything about Shane Wright?
He did not.
See, the Hockey Cards Gongshow Discord server is a place to be, and you get there by supporting us on Patreon. Now, conversely, Troy, the U.S. beat Latvia in Game 1 5-2. They had 5 different goal scorers. Sean Barons, Redmond Savage. That's a sweet hockey name.
Redmond
Savage. Name. Golden Gopher, Jimmy Snuggerud, Chaz Lucius, and Luke Hughes all scored for Team US.
I think what's really interesting, if anyone has watched these games, and I've just watched some highlights, is the amount of players that have tried the Michigan goal is, I think, the most I've ever seen in these games. And then there's a little controversy, a little stuff going on where Canada said, I can't remember who it was on Canada, but I can find the quote. They're saying not going to Michigan our way to the final, which I thought was pretty interesting. So it's kind of
bulletin board material.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting what's going on with the Michigan goal. And I know there's been some talk, should it be legal? Because if you wrap it around, and I guess as long as the puck stays below the crossbar, it's not a high stick. But what if the blade extends over, but the puck? It's really weird, like nuance with the rule.
Okay, so you've got a son in Pee Wee hockey,
yeah,
and you coach. How many of those kids during warm-ups are trying to Michigan goal?
About 5 to 6 of them, and we have one kid that can do it all the time. But he's a D.
Really?
He never does it in a game because he never really goes down, even though we try to get him to move the puck and be offensive. But yeah, during warm-ups, a lot of kids are doing it. I'm really curious to see how the Michigan goes as we get further down and these kids get more skilled and they keep working on it. And I'm just forever, scarred by the Michigan goal because the Michigan goal was scored by the Michigan player against the Gophers.
Of course.
Was it the national? It might have been a national championship. I can't remember what the exact game was, but of course it was against the Gophers.
Have you ever noticed too that like any NFL highlight ever of like any quarterback is always against the Vikings? I know this is a hockey, but yeah, it's always against us. Have you seen anyone on the girls' side try to do one?
We've had a couple on our team try it. In
a game?
Yeah, in a game, a couple times. They've never gotten it, though. It's like falling off the stick or, not even we haven't had anyone even get close.
What happens when they skate off the ice with your head coach there?
Oh, and I don't think anything. I mean, hey,
okay.
I mean, if you want to try it and if it works, great. But, we'll never stifle innovation or trying to think outside the box on stuff like that.
Now, as a goalie coach, it's a really tough shot to stop, right?
It is. And what's a lot, on the girls' side, usually our goalies are smaller, obviously, height-wise. Where on the men's side, at least because technically when they come around the net, most of the time a goalie will be in a position called an RVH. It's like reverse, vertical, horizontal. It's just how their legs are positioned. But the guy goalies usually are big enough where their shoulders and their head can seal off that near side top corner. But on the girl side, it's a little different because they're usually smaller, so they can't really seal the whole thing. There's still kind of a gap, so they got to be a little more careful. But the skill, I'd say the skill of the boys is a little ahead on the Michigan shots right now and the attempts. That's kind of where it's at.
Maybe we should get the state of Michigan to sponsor our Michigan goal breakdowns. That'd be good. All right, so that's it for hobby news. We do want to roll now into Gongshow partner and sponsor. PWCC has another kind of a banger weekly auction going. The last one ended on Christmas Day, and Troy went through and found a bunch of cards that I guess you thought are kind of interesting and want to highlight as part of this week's auction. There's a lot of cards again this week, right? Like 260 or 70.
The last time I looked, it was at 273.
Okay.
So 273 hockey cards specifically.
Yeah.
So the first one, we kind of broke them up, vintage and modern. So then the vintage set, there's 3 cards. The first one is a 1969 OPG, Tony Esposito, rookie auto. It's PSA DNA. So card is not graded, but the auto is authenticated. So the card and the auto are not graded. They don't give them a grade number, but the auto is authenticated by PSA. And as we kind of noted in the notes, it's actually a really, really cool collector's card. This would be perfect. It's obviously got some issues that prevent a super high grade, but none of them distract from the overall appearance of the card if you look at it. Centering is really good. Corners look good when you zoom in and you look at the pictures. The autograph.
It's maybe like a little staining or something like that I saw on the...
little staining. But the thing is, the thing about this card that's awesome is the autograph. It's super clean, looks great. It's where it's at on the card. It's right below his head, if I remember right. I don't have it up right now.
Yeah.
It's right below his head, almost across the chest in a nice spot. The auto looks really nice. And again, if you're a Blackhawks, a goalie collector, a PC Esposito, and you're looking for a rookie auto that's authenticated and you don't really care about the grades, this is the perfect card to try to go get.
It's super nice and very presentable.
Yeah.
It's one of those weird, where you think, okay, the card isn't going to grade well, so it's like horribly off-centered or the corner's mangled or something like that. It's none of that. It'd be one that you would appreciate, I think, staring at.
For sure. All right, second card is a 1970 OPG Bobby Orr black bottom print PSA 8. Very unique card. I had to do some a history lesson because Josh, you kind of gave me you gave me some background on it, and I had absolutely no idea. So it's a unique and rare card that instead of a white border on all four sides, on the bottom, the black background of the card actually extends to the bottom of the card. So it almost looks like, I don't know, it's got like 3/4 of a white border, I guess you'd say, and then the black kind of extends all the way to the bottom. And what's really interesting about this card is originally PSA had these variations labeled as errors. But it looks like a number of collectors worked with PSA to correctly label these as a card variation. So to me, that's actually kind of cool, where even the authenticators kind of might have made a mistake, but if enough people reach out, they'll work with them and figure it out. So now it's actually a variation and not an error of the card. Apparently, there was only a few sheets of these cards produced with this black bottom print variation. This particular card in the auction is a PSA 8. It's a pop of 2, and there are only 2 that are graded higher. And then to date, the highest selling Orr black print bottom was a PSA 5 that went for $1,009 this past March. I think it looks cool. I'm not sure I would buy it, but I think it looks really, really cool. And just to know that there's this variation out there that, geez, there's not a lot. I mean, if you have like a couple sheets of this thing printed, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, if you've never seen it, I would definitely recommend going to the PWCC website and checking it out. It is very unique. And I'll kind of second what you said about the PSA 8. Given just how the card is designed, a PSA 8 grade or any high grade of this card is going to be tough, right? Especially when you have like a solid color like black going all the way to the border, but then there's still white borders on the other parts of the card. So I'll be curious to see. This is one where it's like you wonder, well, how many people know about the uniqueness of this card and appreciate that? Because you would think that if a PSA 5 sold for over $1,000 US, that a PSA 8 with really 2 graded higher and a pop 2 in and of itself would sell for a lot, but we'll see.
Excellent. And the third card in the vintage group, we'll call it, is the 1981 OPG Dino Ciccarelli rookie PSA 9. Josh, is this the greatest card in the auction?
I think it's pretty awesome from an old North Stars guy. I like the card design a lot of 81 OPG. I like the goofy OPG logo. I think, and I'm big on this where it's like when the design of the card really fits the time period. I really like that. And I kind of feel like this one does that too. But yeah, it's hard not to love Dino.
Being North Star fans, we love this card, and I am totally biased on this being the greatest card in the auction, but anything North Stars, love it. And if you don't know, we kind of mentioned this, we haven't talked Dino Ciccarelli about him much. However, there's a fun fact that we do know about Dino Ciccarelli. His 608 career goals is the most scored ever by a draft eligible player that was not selected in the draft. That's crazy. Good job, Minnesota, on getting him or signing him.
Digging deep in the.
Well, I mean, look at him. He was 5 foot and nothing, and all you do is get just beat to a living pulp in front of the net. But he just like rebound, goal. Made a career living in the blue paint. So this card.
Question for you.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Quick question for you. If we did Mount Rushmore of coolest hockey player names,
ooh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. What an awesome name. I wish my name was Dino Ciccarelli.
Dino Ciccarelli. Yeah, he was.
This is Hockey Cards Gongshow podcast. I'm Dino Ciccarelli, and I'm joined by Troy.
Definitely Troy. Minnesota fan favorite.
Yeah, there we go.
All right. Again, specifically, 1981 OPG Dino Ciccarelli rookie card. The pop count of the PSA 9 is 165, and there's 46 PSA 10s. So pretty limited number of PSA 9s out there and PSA 10s if you actually looking for the higher grade. The all-time high sale for this card was back in April at $160 US. They do not sell very often. I think in our research, we found 7 sales this year. And then a seller let one go a couple days ago for $60 US on eBay via best offer. So if we use that as a recent comp, this card it will be very interesting to see where it goes. But I don't know what it's at right now. I forgot to look. I'm guessing it's going to be close to that $60 range right now, but that's just me. I don't know.
From your PC perspective, Dino Ciccarelli, rookie, OPG, PSA 9, $60. You're in on that, huh?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So maybe that's our homer pick.
Yep, we got to have a homer pick. All right, then we're going to the modern cards. So we listed 2 cards in the modern set. There is a 2016 Upper Deck Young Guns Clear Cut Austin Matthews BGS 9.5, and this one is True Gem Plus. So I think, Josh, I can't remember. It has 3 9.5s and a 10 on subgrades, if I remember right.
Yep, where every subgrade is at least 9.5 or Gem Mint, and then there's 1 10 subgrade. If it had 2 10 subgrades, it would be a True Gem Plus. And I think this is why this card stood out to us, is that not only is Clear Cut pretty rare in of itself, and this is where, to me, where I don't have put a lot of personal value in BGS. But until you get into these situations where this kind of, where you get, okay, True Gem Plus, my ears start to perk up a little bit.
Yeah, and I like this card just for the fact, like you said, it's a Clear Cut Young Guns. It's one of the cards I don't think I've ever pulled, ever. Not that I've pulled so much product that I should have by as probability, but I just love Clear Cut Young Guns and how they look. So it's cool that this one's out there. When I wrote my notes, current bid was at $1,700. It's obviously going to go for more than that. The last sale via eBay was in May of 2022 for around $5,300. So I'm guessing it gets in that range.
Yeah.
Very cool card. And then the last one, and this might be my favorite card. I know I said the Dino Ciccarelli, but that's just...
Poor Dino.
Boy, that's just Dino nostalgia. But this one's very cool. 2014, the Cup Limited Logos, Mario Lemieux, out of 10. It's a PSA 8 grade on the card, and the auto grade is a 10. I'm just going to say, if you look at the card, it is absolutely gorgeous. The card's numbered number 5 out of 10 copies. It's the only graded copy of this card in PSA's database. And at first, when I looked at the card, it's amazing how there's kind of a lot of stuff on it, but it works. Because there's an auto, there's the picture, there's the Cup logo. It's a lot of stuff on there, but it's a great picture of Lemieux. The auto, I love Marley's auto. You could probably say it's not the easiest to read in what it says, but it looks really cool. And this card is just gorgeous.
This is a Les Edwards card.
Yeah, for sure. This is
right. Limited logos out of 10.
Out of 10. It's got a patch. It's got an auto. It's got a great picture.
Super Mario.
Yep, Super Mario. It is a great looking card. So if you haven't checked it out, go to the auction. Go to PWCC site. Look at the weekly auction that's running now. It's a great looking card. Even if you're not going to buy it, just look at it. It's so cool.
Well, what's really nice for us too is that these are not the only 5 interesting hockey cards in the auction each week, especially. So we kind of have an embarrassment of riches to choose from. It is auction live now. I believe it ends on Sunday. So go ahead to PWCC's website and check that out. Last topic for today's show, Troy, is kind of a big one. So the 2021-22 Skybox Metal Universe Hockey checklist is out. You can check it out for yourself by going to Beckett or Cardboard Connection. Definitely recommend doing that. I did your move, Troy. I downloaded the spreadsheet.
You look at all the different card variations.
Minus any Easter eggs, which I'm sure there'll be a few. There's 3,267 different cards on the checklist. Biggest thing that stands out to me is going back to our year in review where somebody mentioned the emergence of PMGs, and particularly the 97-98 retro PMGs, is that the checklist for the 97-98 retros is mainly, or really all, the 2021 rookies. And you and I had a conversation about this.
We did.
Last week, because we were looking at the configuration. Again, this was before the checklist was out, and both of us were like, okay, so they're saying that there's 97-98 retros again, but those were out in last release, and somebody paid like $500,000 for Ovechkin, the 101 gold. They're not going to have another one because it's the same design. So so we were kind of thinking that it's only going to be rookies, which turns out to be the case. And then again, that's just for the retro, the 97-98 retro PMGs. And I think that there's like 50 of them. Yeah, there's 50 retro rookie parallel PMGs. So it's going to be Caulfield, Zegras, Raymond, Sider, Swayman, Knight, the big 2021 rookies. My question though is, if those other than Kaprizov, what really led the charge for 2020 Skybox was the Ovechkin, Crosby, McDavid, Matthews. Not having those guys be retro PMGs, does that take away a little of the steam?
Well, I know you're going to get
from
to this
release.
I know you're going to get to this, but I think the pricing reflects that.
Yeah, that's a good. There are 200 players in the base PMG checklist that does include a mix of veterans and rookies. It also includes a number of alternate jersey PMGs. So I don't know, maybe this is how Upper Deck kind of solved that riddle, where maybe the retro or the alternate jersey McDavid or Matthews or Makar or Ovechkin will be really sought after. But I don't know. I feel like it's still the retro rookies. So they're really counting on these rookies to sort of carry the weight. Or I don't know if Upper Deck really cares about secondary market, I should say. So with retros and base and alternate jersey, there's 250 total PMGs. It's the same configuration from a precious metal gem perspective as last year. So they're limited to 100. They're all serial numbered. Number 1, which is the 1 of 1, is the gold. So serial number 2 out of 10 are green, and serial numbers 11 out of 100 are red. Beyond PMGs, Troy, there's a ton of base and base parallel auto cards. I think 254 different cards in total. So lots of different autos. On the other insert front, Jambalaya, which is one of my favorites. They're in their 720, one of every 720 hobby packs, one out of every 1,500 blasters. Lots of names that you would expect from a Jambalaya perspective. So McDavid, Crosby, Ovechkin, Matthews, and McKinnon, to name a few. I did want to mention, though, there are some first-time Jambalaya players of note. So Kaprizov, oh boy, I want this card bad. Troy, my birthday sometime. It's dropping the hint. If anyone wants to give me that Kaprizov, I would love you forever. Caulfield, Quinn Hughes, Lucas Raymond, and these last two kind of surprised me a little bit. Andrea Vasilevsky and Leon Draisaitl have never had a Jambalaya.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah. So if you're a Draisaitl collector, you might want to jump on that. That's over the last 6 months, I've really waffled back and forth if I should start PC and Draisaitl. I just can't get myself there. But I want to, though, too. There's also the new Metallics. It looks like Metal-X that has 70 cards. That'll be kind of interesting to see how that does from a secondary market perspective. Pack odds there are 1 out of 240 hobby and 1 out of 6,000 blaster.
Ooh.
I'd be curious to know. So again, going back to Jambalaya, 1 out of 720 hobby, 1 out of 1,500 blasters. So it's roughly double, or how do you say that? Is it half the odds or double the odds in between hobby and blaster? But then you go to this Metallics and it goes from 1 in 240 to 1 in 6,000. It doesn't make sense to me. I wonder what the reason is.
Yeah,
you know everything about Upper Deck.
Yeah.
Tell me.
I don't know. They just decided that's what they're going to do and went with it. I don't know if it has to do with the run or anything like that. But
then the other one note is the ultra rare Platinum Portraits is back. 1 out of every 1,920 hobby packs and 1 out of every 15,000 blasters.
Don't buy blasters.
Much better off
don't buy blasters looking for this card.
Or any of these cards.
Yeah,
or any
of them. Just buy it. They'll be on sale. Believe me.
Which is a good segue. Well, I should say there's 23 cards on the Platinum Portraits checklist. Mostly vets, but there are Caulfield, Zegras, and Quentin Byfield are the rookies.
How much more do you think the Caulfield and Zegras will sell for than the Byfield if they had to put them on the first week after the product's released?
Yeah, I wonder how long ago they had to make that decision.
I know. I'm sure.
30 other players I would much rather have than Quentin Byfield. I'm all in on Caulfield and Zegras, but not Byfield. Last thing on this pricing. Looked up some, again, pre-sale pricing. We did order some. It is, from the U.S. perspective, currently $129 U.S. on Dave and Adams. Steel City below it, I think, $150. So it's interesting that there's a $20 difference there. And this goes back to your point, Troy, about maybe the price is reflecting. Because at some point, especially when there's the Ovechkin bounties, I know at local card shops, people wanted $350 a box or more. So that's big time down. And going back to the hobby versus blaster odds, I think if you can get a hobby box in the 130, 140 range, it does make no sense to buy a blaster box, especially because your odds are so much worse to get any of the big hits. But to each their own, right? In Canada, we looked at Close and Chara, it's 190 Canadian, which is probably what closer. I can't do the conversion in my head, but probably around the 140 US range, or
probably somewhere in there.
So something like that. So anything else that stood out to you on the checklist?
No, I think we hit all the major ones. I'm just always now fascinated by the total number of like whatever different cards. That number always jumps out at me now after I looked at it for game used.
We need to start tracking that somehow.
Oh, that'd be easy as long as those spreadsheets stay available, unlike Cardboard Connection or Backup.
Well, that is the show for you today. Hopefully you enjoyed our 2022 year-end review. It's our last show of 2022. Next time we talk to you, Troy, is going to be 2023. Can you believe that?
That's awesome.
Next time that's crazy. Thank you all for listening. It's been an amazing 2022 for us, and we're so grateful for everyone's support. We had no idea our show would become even remotely close to where it is. It's still, I have a hard time wrapping my head around it. I don't know about you, Troy, but it's crazy.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. No, you asked me, would we be here? Not in my wildest dreams, to use a nice cliche.
If you like the episode, please leave a rating review on Apple, Spotify, or whatever podcast app you listen to us on. If you love the show, and how could you not? It's got Troy. And would like to support us and want to chat with us on the Hockey Cards Gongshow Discord server and be invited to Troy's for a sleepover, maybe not, please consider a $5 a month donation via Patreon and join the 99 support level tier. Be one of the first 99 supporters of the Hockey Cards Gongshow podcast. If you're interested in doing so, you can go to the Patreon website, search for Hockey Cards Gongshow, visit the link in the show description for whatever podcast app you're listening to us on, or go to our Instagram profile where you can find the link via our link tree. I really doubt anyone is not already following us on social media, so I'm probably wasting my breath. But just in case, there's one or two. The Hockey Cards Gongshow podcast is on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. And we have some YouTube stuff coming up. So if you're not subscribed, I guess is the word, to us on YouTube, please do so. And Troy, the Hockey Cards Gongshow podcast is a production of Dollarbox Ventures, LLC. See everyone. We'll talk to you in 2023.